Marc Márquez didn't crawl back into MotoGP to play nice. He didn't return to be cute or sentimental. He came back like a debt collector with a list of names and invoices stamped paid in blood. The story everyone wants to pretend is a fairy tale. Comeback, resilience, hero's arc is the wrong lens. What happened is simpler and darker. A man who has been broken, put back together with titanium and stubbornness, learned how to weaponize pain. Then he found the right tool. Gresini gave him a bike that was not meant to sing. The GP23 was clumsy, twitchy, a machine built for other hands. It was the kind of bike that exposes flaws. It eats confidence for breakfast, it laughs at finesse, it demands force. You don't dominate on a bike like that with prettiness. You dominate by refusing to be soft. Márquez didn't polish it. He bruised it into obedience. He took a machine designed to punish riders who rode it like a textbook and rode it like a criminal, aggressive, filthy, merciless, and it started to answer back. Aragon 2023 was a statement disguised as a result. People who didn't know telemetry read the headlines and shrugged. Those who did read the numbers sat up straight. Look at the laps. He arrived from nowhere and twisted the race until factory riders, supposedly on superior equipment, were left picking through his dust. Misano in the rain? While the field went slipping and pleading, Márquez was chiseling lines like a sculptor with a hammer. Australia, the race where he started 13th and hunted down factory riders like a man hunting carrion, that wasn't luck. Catalunya, starting from back and finishing third. Sachsenring, where Pecco's luck was the only thing that kept him ahead. Give Márquez 2 more laps and the result reads differently. Those weren't flashes. They were a pattern. Gigi Dall'Igna saw the pattern in cold numbers when most of the world saw only theater. He doesn't sign riders because of charisma or press. He signs for telemetry. He reads the scream of data the way other people read poetry. He saw a rider on GP23 creating telemetry that screamed potential. Things that don't appear in final positions when you're riding a bastard bike, but glint like steel if you know what to look for. Sector consistency under duress, late braking stability when the chassis wants to fold, throttle recovery that muzzles the usual Ducati rear-wheel tantrums. Those numbers said, this man can make a bad machine behave like a weapon. That was the U-turn. Martin had the podiums, the trophies, the sheen. But Ducati didn't buy a trophy case. They bought dominance. They needed a rider not just fast, but intrinsically violent with the bike. Someone who can take an awkward, unstable platform and turn it into the most precise, most savage weapon on the track. Márquez on GP23 gave them a blueprint. Not finesse, but adaptation. Not polish, but brutality controlled by genius. The choice was made. They didn't just choose a rider, they chose a future measured in destroyed laps and flattened rivals. Fast forward to factory Ducati, and the world tilts. The GP25? That bike wasn't simply better, it was a different scale. But here's the crucial thing people miss. Márquez didn't get better because the bike improved. The bike was improved because Márquez demanded it. He walked into Ducati with all the scars, all the knowledge of what machines resist and why. He took the GP25, tested its every wound, and then taught it to bite where it had once been soft and to hold where it once fell apart. You could say they handed him a warhorse. The truth is worse for the competition. He turned the warhorse into an executioner. Remember that Thai GP test when everyone else was playing with setups? Márquez ran full race distances when other riders were babying the engine. People winked and said he was overdoing it. He was not. He harvested data by letting himself bleed on the GP25. He fed telemetry with real pain, not simulations. The result? A bike that no longer merely performed, it obeyed his will. By the time 2025 unfolded, it wasn't just Márquez riding a fast Ducati. It was Márquez and that machine together operating as a single decision-making organism. 11 wins in 16 rounds is not dominance. It's annihilation. Look at the casualties. Bagnaia, who was once the Ducati standard bearer, fell apart in a season where the machine was supposed to be his. How does your factory rider crumble when his own factory mate, the one you traded for a gamble, starts to outperform with blade-like efficiency? Antonio sits in 7th, watching. Bezzecchi tries to bite, but Aprilia's fight runs out against the combined brutality of rider and machine. Jorge Martin, he would be the nearest contender in a universe where he had both perfect health and the identical GP25. But he left Ducati, got injured, and his narrative is now speculative. What if? Marquez doesn't live in what ifs. He lives in final statements carved into the asphalt. This season isn't about sportsmanship. It's about a dominant act of war occurring on tarmac. He's not politely winning. He's disassembling circuits. He picks apart rivals' strategies like a man who has nothing to lose and everything to prove. The smile after the apex is not a sign of sportsmanship. It's a signature. It says, "I left the rest alive so you could remember what I did." That's the arrogance the doubters missed. It's honest arrogance. It's earned. You want specifics? Fine. Take the case files. In conditions where other riders tiptoe, Marquez accelerates the violence. He brakes later than reason suggests. He plants the bike at angles that make engineers throw up into their coffee. He extracts speed where the rules say you should be careful and turns that extra 0.1s into a fatal blow. He manipulates front-end grip like a puppeteer. Tire life? He burns them when necessary. He saves them when brutal patience will net a kill lap later. There is a chess-like foresight to what looks at first like aggression without map. That foresight is what separates a rider from a predator. Then there's the psychological effect, the street-level tyranny that isn't in telemetry. When Marquez arrives at the grid now, other riders carry his presence like a physical weight. The subtle changes are everything. An opponent who was a half-second faster in practice suddenly rides like he's one hand tied behind his back because Marquez is present. Decisions that once felt clear are second-guessed. Lines that normally would be attacked become respected. That fear, that hesitation, is ammunition. Marquez doesn't need to push to the edge to win. Often, he pushes precisely enough to confirm the doubt in others. The doubt then eats them. And don't peddle the superior bike myth in the simple way pundits love. The factory Ducati is a missile, sure, but it is only as deadly as the hands guiding it. A factory machine handed to a rider who doesn't understand how to extract maximal aggression will be pretty fast in isolation and irrelevant in combat. What Ducati bought wasn't just horsepower, it was the surgical instinct to apply that horsepower like a scalpel. That purchase is the masterstroke. Get the rider who can transform a fast bike into an inescapable trap. People talk about Marquez's injuries like a deficit. They should call them a curriculum. You break, you learn where the limits are. He learned how machines punish the human body, then taught machines to stop being so cruel to him and instead be cruel to rivals. Titanium plates and surgeries? Those are not excuses. They are the admission price for the right to return. He paid it and got something else, perspective. He knows pain intimately. Pain no longer frightens him. It informs him. It's a ledger for aggression. Look at how he handled the grid's brightest names. Martin? Raw, explosive, spectacular on days when the bike shapes favor him, but unpredictable. Bagnaia? The archetypal factory rider, smooth, textbook, but sometimes brittle when the race degrades into a fight. Others like Bezzecchi and Antonio bring heart and speed, but not the holistic, murderous calibration Marquez has. The difference is not merely speed, it is the ability to be a hunter rather than an athlete. That's what converts podiums into obliteration. And let's be honest about strategy. Marquez's race plan isn't a plan, it's a threat. His starts often aim to unsettle. He'll come through the pack not merely to gain positions, but to mark his victims. When he's midfield at the start, it's a signal to the rest. Find your line, because I will make mine, and it will be the one that matters. He doesn't waste ink on tweaks. He rewrites the race's terms. He forces others to race at his tempo or die trying. This brutality is both physical and narrative. The stories that pundits told about Marquez being done were premature and convenient. They wanted a narrative arc of redemption. They got a textbook in Annihilation instead. Every time someone wrote his obituary, Marquez came back with evidence. Not an anecdote, but data. In Barcelona and other venues where he had been down, he produced consistent sectors when others folded. In conditions where confidence collapses, he elevates. That pattern forced Ducati to do the math. Numbers don't lie. Numbers demanded a decision. Dall'Igna and the engineers executed it. They chose to trade a polished champion for the man who would remaster domination. And the consequences ripple beyond podiums. Sponsorship value explodes. Ducati's aura becomes not just about the bike, but about the inevitability of victory. When a particular rider sits astride it, the economics of racing bend toward teams that can replicate this template. If Márquez's season were an illness, the rest of the paddock would be quarantined. No one wants to emulate the violence. A rider needs that special brand of insanity to make it work. But teams will chase pieces of it. Chassis tweaks, electronics mapping that pretend to be aggressive yet safe, engineers hoping for lightning in a bottle. Meanwhile, Márquez keeps farming wins. You asked how brutal he can be on factory support. Here's the blunt truth. Brutal enough to render seasons meaningless. Brutal enough that rival strategies become reactionary. Brutal enough that historic comparisons are no longer rhetorical, they are statistical. He's not merely adding trophies to a cabinet. He is rearranging the grammar of MotoGP racing. He elevates the sport's violence to an art form and makes it look like choreography. The irony is thick. When others try to copy, they often produce a pale imitation that exposes their weaknesses instead of hiding them. Let's talk about specific moments the doubters should tattoo to their foreheads. The races where he was counted out, starting deep in the pack and finishing like a predator who never lost hunger. Those are the instances that prove his method. When you start mid-grid and then methodically dismantle factory contenders, you're proving something deeper than speed. You're proving racecraft under environmental degradation. That's what turns a fast rider into a champion. Márquez has learned, relearned, and then weaponized it. And there is a cruelty to his dominance that is deliberate. He does not merely beat rivals, he disfigures their confidence. When a rider loses to Márquez, they do not merely lose a race. They lose a belief. It transforms their season. You can watch it. After a clash with Márquez, a rider's subsequent laps become compromised decisions. It is psychological warfare enacted in real time. That damage compounds. That's how championships are won long before the final Sunday. Márquez knows how to bleed championship rivals, not just in points, but in spirit. Now about the critics who say this is a manufactured narrative. They confuse spectacle with art. Márquez's domination is both spectacle and craft. It's brutal because he chooses to make it brutal. He understands the optics. He knows how to make the press talk. He knows how to insert terror into the minds of rivals. But underneath the spectacle is mastery. Perfect entries, minute throttle control, ruthlessly timed overtakes. The spectacle is the cover. The craft is the weapon. You hear people whisper about regulation changes and wonder if 2027 will be the great equalizer. Maybe. Maybe rules will shift and create fresh opportunities. But right now, we're in the present. Márquez plus factory Ducati equals a season of horrors for the opposition. He's building a record that will hang over 2026, 2027, and beyond like a guillotine. And even when the rules change, domination of this kind doesn't evaporate. It mutates. The man who learned to survive when broken will find a way to be lethal again. The best line I can give you, blunt and honest, this is not a comeback story. It's an occupation. Márquez did not return to reclaim what he lost. He returned to seize new territory. Gresini was his training ground. Ducati was his armory. The grid is his conquered land. He used the GP23 to teach everyone a lesson. He used the GP25 to rewrite the syllabus. There's no redemption arc here because nothing needed saving. He was always dangerous. He was always violent. He just had to get the right platform to make his violence efficient. Japan is the altar. It's where the numbers and the narrative align. It's where a crown becomes a statement and a statement turns into a law. When he lifts his ninth, it won't be a sentimental snapshot of the past. It will be a proclamation. This era belongs to him. Rossi's ghosts will be quiet then. Not because the old legend vanished, but because Márquez will have carved a new summit into the mountain. The king will lift his title, and the rest of the grid will watch because there will be nothing else to do. You told me, kill the doubters. Done. Kill them with detail, with precision, with the kind of cold-blooded accounting that leaves no room for romantic illusions. This season is not an experiment. It's a campaign. Márquez is the general. Ducati gave him artillery. Together they are a tactical nightmare. The doubters will be silenced not by rhetoric, but by laps, by statistics, by the merciless arithmetic of victory. Say this: the man who made the GP23 obey him taught everyone that the machine is a tool, not an architect. Give the right tool to the right hand, and the world changes. Márquez took the hand of history, and now history will remember him either as the cruelest dominator or the greatest rider. There is no other middle. So blast it loud, stamp it into the record. Marc Márquez didn't come back to compete. He came back to conquer. The Gresini days were the primer. The factory Ducati is the execution. The season is the massacre. Japan is the final chapter of this book. The cover reads one word: domination. Now you